Hello, everybody. We see you coming in. Good evening. I see people are joining us, so we're just going to give everyone another couple of minutes. Hello, everybody. Okay, it is 7:31, so we are going to get started. Good evening. My name is Alyssa Green-Fry. I'm the Director of Admissions at the Rashi School, and welcome to the Rashi School's virtual open house for grades 1 through 5. We appreciate your joining us tonight. Some of you have already been to one or two of our other open houses, so if you're back, we are very happy to see you again. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. We are going to spend about the next 40 minutes giving you a preview of Rashi's lower school program, beginning with remarks from our head of school, Adam Fisher. Next, Assistant Head of School and Division Director Dave Rosenberg will speak about our approach to teaching and learning and the student experience. You will then hear from select members of our lower school faculty, followed by a Q&A. As you can imagine, it is really difficult to capture every aspect of the Rashi School in a 45-minute Zoom webinar. So each teacher will talk about a concept, a theme, or a unit that together will give you a sneak peek and a bit of a mosaic in terms of what it means to be a Rashi student and be part of the Rashi community. Please enjoy, and we look forward to helping you continue your exploration of the Rashi School in the coming weeks. Adam?
Hi, good evening. I'm Adam Fisher, head of the Rashi School. Welcome to Rashi. We're very happy to have you here tonight, and I'm tremendously excited to give you the opportunity to hear from more than a dozen of the people on the team who would be working with your child in 1st to 5th grade. It's a tremendous group of people, and I just want to focus on a couple of things before you get to hear from each of them individually. The Rashi School is a place that provides a wonderful academic program that supports and challenges every student with Jewish and secular learning integrated. And we have spent more than 25 years in social justice, action, and instruction. And this is all wrapped in the most warm and welcoming community that I have ever experienced. It's a tremendous place to be. And I hope as you get to hear from people tonight, you'll understand what makes it so special. I also want to make sure that I don't take up too much time because I could talk about this place for the entire 40 minutes without any trouble. And I can't see, but there are probably a lot of people in Hollywood Squares around me going, yes, he can. So I'm going to cut myself short here, but if there are things that you would be interested in hearing from the head of school about, please do put those in the Q&A towards the end. Thanks so much for joining us, and here's Dave.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Rosenberg, the Assistant Head of School. I'm also the Division Director for grades 1 to 5. I'm in my 20th year at Rashi. I spent 15 years teaching 2nd and 3rd grade, and I'm in my 5th year as the Assistant Head. I'm also the parent of a current 6th grader, and so I've experienced the entire lower school as a parent as well. And really the 1st to 5th grade range is just a tremendous span that our kids come in as 1st graders, as emerging readers, pre-readers in some cases, and when they leave the lower school as 5th graders, they're writing reflections on the Holocaust and doing Shark Tank style pitches of their science fair projects. So it's just a great period of growth. We use a team teaching model, and right now you can see all of the people, the wonderful teachers who are going to interact with your children over the course of their lower school experience. We have 3 teachers at each grade level that work collaboratively with your students. In addition, they're supported by our literacy specialist and our math specialist who are going to speak to later this evening. We also have a huge team of arts specialists, athletics, social justice teachers, Hebrew teachers, all of whom your children have the opportunity to learn from over their lower school years. We have a really strong academic program without being a pressure cooker. Our homework begins in 3rd grade, but we also begin with nightly reading as early as 1st grade. We group students by readiness in reading and math, and we assess them 3 times a year in both literacy and math so that we can see where they are. And the groups are fluid based as students grow at uneven rates. And so that what the grouping might be right for one child in the fall, there may be a different grouping that's right for them in the winter. And so we're tracking that very closely. And because the teachers know the students so well, there are no cracks here where children can fall through. Throughout their time in the lower school, the children maintain the curiosity that they have when they come in as kindergartners. Their commitment to social justice continues to grow over their time here, and they grow as critical thinkers. Our teachers will love your children and care for them and share their passions with your children. And you're going to hear from a number of our teachers right now. I'm going to turn things over to Corey.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, I'm Corey Roberts, and I teach 1st grade. One of the hallmarks of 1st grade is the amount of growth that happens, particularly when it comes to independence and literacy. Your children come into 1st grade as 6-year-olds with varying degrees of self-help skills and a wide variety of reading levels. We meet each child where they are while encouraging them to take steps outside of their comfort zone. For example, if a child is unsure of what to do when given an assignment, we ask them to follow a 3-step method. 1, reread the directions. 2, think about what they already know. And 3, give it a go. This is posted in the classroom as well as on desks as easily accessible reminders. We find that the children often already know what to do. They just need to take a little more time to realize it. Additionally, we provide the 1st graders with predictable, structured routines that allow them to know what is coming next. One of the best examples of this is the way we structure our reading blocks. We start every block with a lesson from our Foundations Phonics program, a program that relies on multisensory tools such as magnet tiles, dry erase boards, and skywriting to practice and reinforce the rules that have been taught. We then do a rotation of reading centers combined with small reading groups to meet each student at their just right level. Reading centers are a variety of handwriting, poetry, extra phonics practice, or using some of our tech tools such as RazKids, Lexia, or Epic. Our small reading groups are usually no more than 4 children, and they take turns reading the same book, discussing it as we go, and occasionally responding to reading and writing. That's a glimpse of 1st grade, and next I'm going to turn it over to Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie Alper. I teach 2nd grade. This is my, I think, 9th year at the Rashi School, having followed my daughter, who came from Newton Public Schools that weren't really a just right fit for her. She came over to Rashi, and I fell in love with it even more than she did and began teaching 2nd grade. There are so many wonderful things about every grade at Rashi. I have a couple of things about 2nd grade that I'm just extremely passionate about. One is the first thing we learn about at the beginning of the year is we learn about the brain, multiple intelligences, and growth mindset. So this teaches students a whole lot of important skills that they use in everything we do throughout the year. They start to understand themselves as learners. They begin to appreciate how important it is to make mistakes and to be really comfortable with mistakes as they learn to do that and watch their teachers make mistakes and role model how that's a good thing. They develop a vocabulary of positive self-talk. A lot of kids are so afraid to make mistakes or give up. They learn through the study of the brain that when you are learning a new topic, you have not yet developed the neural pathway that has the information about that topic. And that's why you don't know it yet. So we teach them the term, the productive struggle, that little bit of uncomfortableness when you are learning something new. So of course, this works in our conversations, supporting learners through in math and social studies and science. Everything we do, bringing that mindset is important. One of the other things I love that we do we have an overarching theme in science called systems. We also study economics as a system. Second graders learn about needs and wants, goods and services, supply and demand, producers and consumers. They are incredibly adept at understanding these concepts. We also use similar vocabulary when we study ecosystems and producers, consumers. And so we like to have a lot of common threads that weave through a lot of things, but that growth mindset is really important to everything we do. And I will pass it over to Jess.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Jess Solomon. I am one of the third grade teachers. I've been teaching third grade for 15 years now, and I am the proud and thrilled parent of a current fourth grader and sixth grader. So I want to talk about our integrated curriculum, which we do across all grade levels to create these really rich interdisciplinary units of study. So for instance, in the fall, third graders learn about forces, including laws of motion and simple machines. And at the same time that we're doing this in Jewish studies, we're looking at the first few Torah portions in Bereshit, one of which highlights our responsibility to be guardians of the earth, and one which tells the tale of Noah's Ark. And in conjunction with the Torah text, we go on to explore a midrash that introduces us to Noah's wife, Naamah, who is tasked with repopulating the earth with vegetation after the flood. And a midrash is a story that allows us to seek answers to questions that aren't explicitly addressed in Torah, like who was Noah's wife and what was she doing? So combining these studies, we designed a family education program, and we asked the families to put on their engineer hats and to redesign Noah's Ark to accommodate Naamah's garden. And they built prototypes of simple machines that could help Naamah to manage her tasks, such as loading plants onto the ark and feeding and watering the plants and seeds. And it was really inspiring and engaging and joyful and gratifying to see all of this coalesce into a special curricular moment for us. And the project's also helping us to prepare students for the engineering challenges that are coming up as we approach our science fair. So in the 3rd through 5th division, we're examining the United Nations Sustainable Goals. And all of these goals are being explored at the different grade levels in the context of engineering and design. But in 3rd grade, we're focusing on creating sustainable cities. And we're thinking specifically about food insecurity and food waste. And we're supporting Loving Spoonfuls, which is an organization in the greater Boston area that is involved with food rescue. So we're helping to build these simple machines for them that will enable them to do things like transport food from facilities onto their trucks, or separate perishable from non-perishable foods. And the kids are going to be identifying their own problems to solve. So really, like, the sky's the limit for it. It's super exciting and fun. So lots of good stuff in 3rd grade, and I'm going to turn it over to Melissa.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Rosenblatt. I'm a 4th grade teacher, and this is my 12th year teaching at Rashi. I'm also a Rashi parent. My son is in kindergarten, and he's having an amazing year. Tonight, I want to give you a window into my math classroom, and specifically, I want to share an instructional approach called silent teaching. Even though my students often joke that silence is not our strength, they jump with excitement when I say we're going to be doing silent teaching. In a recent lesson, I began by writing the number 6 on my Promethean board in my classroom, drawing an arrow, and then writing 36. I don't use my voice, and the students are also quiet, carefully observing what I'm doing. I repeat this process using the numbers 4 and 16. After I give a few examples, I wordlessly invite the students to fill in the missing pieces. So sometimes I ask for the input, other times I ask for the output. Ultimately, my students were presented with the letter N. And when they were given this variable, my 4th graders came up with N times N, N squared, where the number squared was written out, and N with 2 as the exponent. This instructional tool allows students to look for patterns, test their solutions, work forwards and backwards, take risks, and begin working more abstractly in algebraic expressions. Silent teaching also gives students the opportunity to work independently while also working collaboratively to come up to a conclusion. This can be adapted to teach so many topics. For example, in two-dimensional geometry, we silently sorted quadrilaterals into two piles. The first round, we sorted parallelograms versus non-parallelograms. Then we sorted those same shapes, but this time it was by shapes that had at least one set of parallel sides. And another time we looked at side lengths. When I find an activity like this one, like silent teaching, that drives students to participate, to think critically, to combine multiple skills, and also leaves them asking, when are we going to do this next? I know that powerful learning has occurred. Silent teaching and the ways in which we differentiate instruction in the lower school are reflections of our modern and engaging approach to math. We are sculpting mathematicians who do more than just simple computations. They think at a deep level, they experiment, and they're creating new conceptual understandings that better prepare them for the increasingly complex problems that they'll face in the older grades and in our modern world. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Anne.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Glanz. I'm a 5th grade teacher, and I've been teaching at the Rashi School for 11 years. I love 5th grade, and I love 5th graders. And one of the reasons why I do is because they are so open and curious and hungry for content. So I'm going to talk about social studies, which I'm very passionate about teaching, because I think that shows that nicely. Our curriculum is really framed by big ideas or themes. We call them essential questions. And I thought I'd introduce them to you tonight. So our first one is, how does where you live affect how you live? And we use that when we introduce our first ancient civilization unit, which is Mesopotamia, which means the land between two rivers, hint, hint. And as we go on to ancient Egypt, which is also called the Gift of the Nile, and then ancient Greece. And in each of these, we're exploring how did that particular location, how did the geographic features influence the development of the culture, the political system, technological innovations, and ultimately the success and even failure, perhaps, of those civilizations. And the second strand we talk about all year long is the idea of legacy, which is a huge concept for a 10-year-old to think about. So we're asking them, what are some particular legacies that were handed down, inherited from these particular civilizations? And also, maybe the bigger question, why is it important that we learn about legacies from the past? And then in our final unit, we keep these two strands and we add one more. So our final unit, as Dave alluded to earlier, is the Holocaust. It is my absolute favorite unit to teach. Many 5th graders will tell you it is their favorite unit of the year. It is child appropriate. It is appropriately powerful. It's very inspirational. And it feels, I think, very authentic to them, because it is. And our last essential question is, how do individual actions affect others in the past, the present, and the future? So our focus is on upstander behavior, what makes an upstander, and through lots of case studies. And this is so important for them in so many ways, especially their social development at that time, moving into middle school. So I wish I could say more. Our curriculum is loaded with projects. It is rich and it is thought-provoking. And our ultimate goal really is to move them along the path when they come in as 4th graders, often as concrete thinkers, to more abstract thinking, certainly the kind of deep thinking they're going to need in middle school. So I'm going to turn it over to Fallon.
Thank you, Anne. Good evening, everyone. My name's Fallon Cates. I'm the lower school math specialist here at Rashi. This is my 13th year at the school. I'm thrilled to be part of this event tonight because it is a true pleasure to share with you all about the math that happens at Rashi on a daily basis. Our main goal is to instill a love of math in everyone. In this case, it's your children who are the main event. Math, as we all know, is ubiquitous. Here at Rashi, we want the students to have a deep conceptual understanding of the mathematics that exists in the world around us. We do this by presenting engaging resources and designing activities that will engross their minds and promote that deep thinking. It's not simply algorithmic or rote learning, but really ensuring a genuine grasp and appreciation as well of the content. Melissa's example of silent teaching in the 4th grade exists throughout the curriculum. And this instructional task allows students to not only move at their own pace, but also in a process that best suits them. Meeting the needs of all the students with the intent to extend and enrich their mathematical thinking is paramount at Rashi. To have conceptual knowledge that increases their strategies and improves their problem solving is a skill that they will bring with them wherever they go. To have a strong number sense, which really means to be flexible with numbers, concretely at first in the early years, and then ultimately having that abstract vision and ability to negotiate complexities later, will help them make connections and navigate the world in the years to come. As the lower school math specialist, I have knowledge and experience with the scope of the math curriculum from kindergarten through grade 5. To see the content progress from year to year, and perhaps more importantly, to see the students' growth, and by that I actually mean witness it daily throughout their elementary years at Rashi, does not get much better. Thank you, and I hope you're as excited about math at Rashi as I am. And I'm gonna pass the baton to Hannah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Perkins, and I am the lower school literacy specialist. Like Fallon, I get to work with a variety of grade levels, and perhaps one of my favorite parts of my job is being able to stay with students throughout their time at Rashi, and not only with the students, but also with their families. I would say that I'm equally passionate about literacy and just the Rashi community. I love that in my job, I get to collaborate with teachers at every grade level on a really daily basis to, help support both ends of the spectrum for our learners, whether it's providing the modifications and support strategies or whether it's providing that enrichment. And it's really helpful also, like Fallon, with the math, understanding the scope and sequence. With literacy, it's also really fun to be able to say to kids, remember last year in 1st grade when you did this, and to help make those connections for them so that we can both build on prior knowledge and also help prepare them for what's coming next in the grades ahead. So differentiating with the classroom teachers, working with students, working with families, providing that individualized instruction, and just really meeting learners where they are is one of the best parts of my job. And I will pass it off to Julie.
Hi, everyone. I am Julie Coven-Levine, the school librarian. I'm also a Rashi parent. I have a 1st grader and an incoming kindergartner, so it's exciting to get to see it from the parent end as well. Really excited to talk to you about our library. It is a beautiful space. We have about 10,000 volumes, and our students love getting to borrow books and take them home. Our youngest students, K1 and 2, choose books every week during their library class, and they get to bring them home. Our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders also borrow books during library class, but they can also come and go and choose books at their own pace. So they, sometimes I'll see students daily for new ideas, which is really fun to talk to them about their choices. In our weekly library classes, I do a lot of read alouds. We learn about story components. We learn, we do a lot of predictions of what's going to happen in a story, the elements of a story. I do a lot of author studies and genre studies, and then especially as they get older, introducing them to different kinds of literature to get them excited about different options. A lot of hands-on literature extensions, a lot of STEM projects that go along with the story we might read in class, and a lot of craft projects. So there's a lot of hands-on learning that happens in the library. Along with our print collection, we also have a very robust collection. We have access to a very robust collection of ebooks. We have a subscription to Tumble Books. We use Epic School. And then what's really exciting is our subscription to Sora, which is an ebook platform that we actually share with 10 other independent school libraries in the area, which is really cool that the kids get to know that they're part of this other library community, which is really exciting. And they can read books on various devices. So that brings me to the digital literacy component of our curriculum. We use a lot of educational technology tools at Rashi. We use Google Classroom, we use Flipgrid, where students can record themselves responding to prompts and teachers can see them. Nearpod, which is an interactive platform, Edpuzzle. But we don't just throw these technology tools at students and say, here, use them. And we don't use them for the sake of using them. We really want to activate the curiosity in our students and use these various tools to manage and keep track of their learning and give them opportunities to apply and demonstrate their learning in different ways. So they are becoming 21st century learners. So it's not just using technology for the sake of technology, it is student-centered. And then along with using the technology tools, we have a very robust digital citizenship curriculum, being aware of our role in the larger digital community and teaching students from the youngest age as they go up developmentally and age-appropriate lessons on their digital footprint and using the internet safely, responsibly, and ethically, and how they behave online and how those behaviors should match what they would do in person. A lot of my digital citizenship lessons are framed in a Jewish context. So we'll look at different Jewish values, derech eretz, doing the right thing, or and how that relates to when you're online, how you behave online. So we'll read a Jewish folktale and then discuss the story and then talk about how we interact on different online forums. Shmirat halashon, guarding the tongue, and gossip, and how that relates to being online. And just being our responsibilities as part of the bigger, greater world, digital kehila, the digital community. This digital citizenship curriculum has really been a cornerstone of the library media curriculum for years. So it's been just incredibly relevant in this particular year to make students just fully aware of how their behavior online, how important that is. So, and being 21st century learners. So I'm gonna pass it on to Nick now.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick Linder and I teach music at the Rashi School. So like Julie and a couple of other teachers here, I interact with every student between K and 5, so really broad range. So I will give a bit of a greatest hits, so to speak. So learning in my class, we're really split between 3 main points, segments of the curriculum, so to speak. One would be playing and creating sounds. Another would be listening and movement-based activities. And then the third is going to be more theoretical based. And every class at every grade level is going to interact with those 3 tenets in some way. So at an early age, a lot of our learning in grades K through 2 is really based in the Orff style of teaching. So that means a lot of play, a lot of games, a lot of call and response, improvisational activities, using body percussion, clapping, snapping, tapping, dancing to internalize our beats and music before we externalize on a myriad of other instruments. With our listening and movement-based activities, we're going between Orff style dancing, partner movements at younger ages to our 3rd and 4th grade curriculum, which includes Composer of the Month, where at the end of every single class throughout the year, we are highlighting fun facts and listening of famous composers all the way from the Baroque era to contemporary musicians to give a wide range. And our theory umbrella is a bit of a wider one. So this is going to cover everything from what is a quarter note in our youngest grades to subdividing beats, music notation, literacy on the treble clef, and even elements of composition in our upper grades. Each grade is going to have a drum and rhythm unit. And grades K through 4 will have a xylophone unit. We differentiate age-appropriate and level-appropriate concepts that we're using in each group, but those are going to be fairly consistent. Aside from that, grades 3 through 5 will each have their own personalized instruments, including 4th grade using ukuleles, 5th grade using keyboards and pianos, to give something special to each grade. I like to work with a lot of kind of interdisciplinary ideas. For example, we are very closely partnered with the drama department. I co-teach in the kindergarten with our drama teacher. We work very closely on our grade level plays, integrating music and movement. I work with learning specialists to help identify personalized learning plans and even using elements of speech therapy and linguistics in our songs for example, using syllables and trickier parts of speech in how they appear in songs. As kind of an overview to our curriculum, we integrate a lot of Jewish learning, whether it is holiday appropriate songs, elements, and words that they may be using in their Hebrew classes. And Reform Judaism as a whole is very much rooted in the idea of tikkun olam and how we repair the world. And throughout my curriculum at every grade level, we are always talking about how music is how we tikkun olam, at least in my classroom and in my curriculum. And I'm going to pass it over to Ayelet now.
Thank you so much, Nick. Hi, everybody. My name is Ayelet. I am the department chair for our Hebrew and Spanish department. We do have Spanish in the middle school, but I will focus on Hebrew today, which we offer from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. So Hebrew acquisition at Rashi is a fun and a hands-on experience. We use the proficiency approach to language acquisition, which puts a very strong emphasis on a learner's ability to function in the language. In other words, our goal is for our students to be able to communicate with native speakers in the Hebrew language, whether it's through reading and writing or listening and speaking. And we have developed clear standards-based criteria based on the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages guidelines. As we all know, language is best acquired when one is immersed in it in a meaningful context, a setting where there are messages being relayed that have a purpose, whether this is a socio-emotional purpose, such as asking about somebody's well-being, making plans for a social get-together, or inquiring as to why somebody is upset, or an informational purpose, such as gathering data about preferred foods so that we can organize a party, post-COVID, of course. In a Rashi Hebrew lesson, students are immersed in the Hebrew language. We provide them with what is called comprehensible input throughout each of our lessons. Comprehensible input is a term that refers to language that is exactly one level above the level of the language learner. This provides an optimal setting for the learner to be able to comprehend most of the message they're receiving, interact with it in a meaningful way, and stretch their language learning at the same time. So what does this all look like in our elementary program? A teacher or the student might be leading the class in a game of Simon Says using all Hebrew, or they might be playing Would You Rather with new sentences they've learned where they get to run towards the sentence that they prefer. Or maybe you might see them in the playground playing color tag, running to touch things of different colors when the teacher calls out the name. You might see students collecting data about a certain question by asking and answering the questions with one another, summarizing the information to reach conclusions. For example, what is the favorite dessert in the 4th grade? Maybe they'll be learning words to a new song that they will then be able to sing in one of the music classes with Nick. Maybe they'll be doing hand motions to understand the words while watching a video. All of this language input provides students not only with the opportunity to learn the grammar and vocabulary of the language, but also provides them with a window into Israeli culture. We read authentic Israeli stories, we listen to Israeli songs, we watch video clips, and the kids really get to learn what life in Israel is like. Beginning in 1st and 2nd grade, students are also introduced to reading and writing modern Hebrew through a phonetic program that supports a wide variety of learners. These skills are built on throughout their years in Rashi by engaging with more complex texts and providing longer written responses to prompts. Students are also assessed both formally and informally in all language skills throughout the year. And beginning at the end of 3rd grade, we use an assessment tool called the Oral Proficiency Interview. And the data collected from that in conjunction with teacher input determines students' Hebrew track for the following year. Our curriculum spirals through the grades with a variety of thematic units and real-life projects that are developed by our Hebrew department, and we focus on topics from students' immediate surroundings, and then we expand from there. For example, our younger grade students focus on themes such as clothing, food, family, classroom, seasons, and holidays. Our 3rd graders, for example, this year, who had been learning about holidays for a few years, were tasked with teaching an individual who was new to Judaism all about how to celebrate the various fall Jewish holidays through videos and posters. When the recipient of this information got to see all of these pieces, he was beyond thrilled and ended up recording himself saying some of the things that he learned from our 3rd graders and sending that video back to them. In our later elementary grade, students expand on these topics even further. For example, in the 1st grade, they learn how to talk about the objects in the classroom. That's then revisited in the 4th grade, where students learn how to describe a typical daily schedule and what they do during each class. And this year, our fourth graders will be designing proposals for what they think an ideal schedule should be at the Rashi School, and they will be presenting them to Dave, our assistant head of school, all in Hebrew. Our fifth graders this year are going to be creating an advertisement for our school in Hebrew so that Israeli families might be able to learn about our wonderful school in Hebrew. So they're going to be learning how to take somebody on a tour of the school, provide an overview of student life, and so on. It's important to note that this proficiency approach that we use in our language program supports transfer students when they join the Rashi community. Our focus on the comprehensible input with the support of visuals and gestures throughout each lesson, the ability for students to express their comprehension through actions rather than speaking until they are prepared to be speaking, and the teacher's commitment to differentiation within each lesson provides a very safe and comfortable transition into our program. Our expectation is that even a student who transfers to Rashi in the fifth grade with no background in Hebrew will be able to engage with students from our partner school in Haifa in Hebrew during their 8th grade trip. On that note, I will pass the mic over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Ayelet. I'm Stephanie Rotsky, the Social Justice Coordinator, and also a new parent of a son who just started kindergarten. I've been at the school for 33 years and I'm very proud to share that as a classroom teacher and these past 15 years or so as the Social Justice Coordinator. From the time a student begins at Rashi, we ask them, what are you passionate about? What are problems and challenges in our community and in our world that you want to try and fix? Countless Rashi alums reflect that they continue to carry with them what they've learned at Rashi, the learning and tools and the consciousness required to do Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. Social justice at Rashi is an academic pursuit. Learning always informs action. Our students learn about issues and challenges in our world and why they exist. They engage in hands-on experiences to better understand issues, hear thought leaders share stories and struggles about standing up and speaking out, and our students take action and connect with organizations, both local and around the country, to support their work and really affect change. There are so many examples to share over my 33 years, but in the interest of time, I would like to share just one. Over the course of the year, our first graders delved deeply into children's books to explore 4 essential questions. 1, what does it look like when we say, all are welcome here? What does it look like when people don't feel welcome? 2, what makes a family a family? 3, don't judge a book by its cover. What happens when we make quick judgments about others without ever getting to know them? 4, what do you do with an idea? In this final unit of the year, we read all nonfiction books that spotlight people who recognized a problem, then came up with an idea to take action to address that problem. This year of learning in first grade is just one example of the ways that we lay the foundation for social justice work we will do throughout the students' time at Rashi. Just a little bit for you. And now I'd like to introduce Rabbi Sharon Clevenger.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am the Dean of Jewish Learning at Rashi. And I have to say that if my daughters weren't already enrolled in 4th and 7th grade, I would be firing off an email right this second to Alyssa saying, let my children in, because hearing my colleagues speak so eloquently and passionately about their work, which I see firsthand every single day, and I see through my children's learning and behaviors, it's just awesome. And I'm so proud to be part of this community. I want to share a little bit more with you about what Jewish life looks like at Rashi, though you've already gotten some amazing glimpses from my colleagues. So being Jewish at Rashi is fun. Rashi focuses on joyful Judaism. We want Jewish experiences to be hands-on and meaningful. What do I mean by hands-on? I mean, we don't talk about the Torah. We, on Simchat Torah, unroll the Torah diagonally across our gymnasium on a series of tables with it tied very carefully to the tables, and have the students come in and approach and see. Hands-on means that on Tu B'Shvat, our Jewish holiday celebrating the environment, we plant parsley, which we then harvest in time to use in our Passover Seders. I could go on and on about that, but I think you get my gist. We also, from the very beginning, teach our students to see the world through a Jewish lens. Again, you've heard it through my colleagues. What does Judaism have to say about this? When we learn about the environment, we learn the value of Shomrei Ha'adamah, protectors of the earth. We learn Hebrew phrases, we learn Jewish stories and texts that support the values that we are promoting for our students to bring out into the world. Jewish studies is also academically rigorous, whether it is taught in the classroom in kindergarten through 5th grade, or it's taught as a pullout or a separate subject in middle school. Students understand very quickly that Jewish studies is a place of real learning, of developing academic skills, of building those synapses that Debbie spoke about earlier. And Judaism is also integrated into many, really all of the subjects that students learn. This year I have the privilege of teaching 5th grade Jewish studies, and I can tell you we're studying the book of Shemot, of Exodus. And when we started talking about Pharaoh, the great oppressor of the Hebrews, Anne's student said to me, Rabbi Clevenger, which Pharaoh is it? Which generation, which dynasty are we talking about? And we really enjoyed puzzling over the fact that none of the pharaohs that are mentioned in the Torah get named. And students wondered, based on what they'd learned through Anne, about the different pharaohs, which one it might have been, because which one had a reputation for being harsh. So that's just one of many, many examples. Jewish life at Rashi also includes beautiful, joyful, student-led and student-centered worship. In our worship services, we want the students to attain familiarity and close to mastery on the prayers, their words, their melodies, and also their meanings. And we also want students to be able to be Yisrael, to be God wrestlers, to question and consider, how do I relate to God, and how as a Jew do I relate to my peers and to the world around me? Ayelet mentioned some about our Israel learning throughout our Hebrew program, and also in many of our classes, we have wonderful focal points toward Israel, whether it's geography, it's culture, and even especially into the older grades in middle school, politics. Our goal is for our students to develop both a love of Israel and also a stance about Israel. We want them, when they graduate from Rashi, and I know that feels like a very long time for those of you who have 1st and 2nd graders, but when they graduate from Rashi, we want them to go out into the world, and when they're confronted with challenging information about Israel, say, I knew that, or I was prepared for that, because that's what Rashi does. We also have that marvelous Israel trip in 8th grade that Ayelet mentioned. It is one of the crown jewels of the Rashi education, and something that students look forward to pretty much from the minute they come to Rashi. The Friday before we leave for our trip, we have an assembly, and I invite our kindergartners to stand up as they look at our 8th graders on the stage, and I say, kindergartners, in the blink of an eye, this is going to be you up on the stage. Finally, I do want to give you a glimpse that as your students matriculate into the middle school, we have a really wonderful tradition of celebrating B'nai Mitzvah, the Jewish coming of age ceremony, in our middle school worship services. Again, the services there are student-centered and student-led, And it is one of the highlights of student and also parent experiences at Rashi. They always tell me it was at least as joyful as my child's bar mitzvah in the sanctuary, only I didn't have to wear uncomfortable shoes. So overall, I just cannot say enough about how much our faculty and our students bring their Jewish chops to the Rashi School, and how our students really go through Rashi just celebrating their Jewish identities. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Alyssa, and thank you for being here and for your time.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, everyone. We are now going to move to our Q&A portion of our webinar, so please feel free to start asking questions in the chat. Joining us for this portion of the program are two Rashi parents. We have Allison Smith, who is co-chair of our Parent Admissions Ambassador Program. She is mom to Leah in grade 3 and Jacob in kindergarten. And we have Helene Gelber with us. Helene is our former Parent Council co-chair, and she is mom to son Ben, who is in grade 7 and is also the vice president of Rashi's student government. Thank you, Allison and Helene, for joining us. For our first question, we have, someone has asked, we know that small class size is one advantage that private school has over public school. However, if you live in a very good public school district, what is it about the first grade curriculum that separates Rashi from the public school first grade? Dave, can I throw that to you?
You can, and I would say this is probably true for all of our grades when we're looking comparatively, but I think there's a few things that come to mind. One, I think, is what the smaller class size allows us to do is we know the kids so well, and that it allows us to move through areas of the curriculum quickly. It allows us to teach the students and not the curriculum necessarily, and so that we know, that we can focus on what's really essential and what's really important. I think there are other opportunities that we have with our social justice program, with our relationship with Newbridge on the Charles, which is the senior living facility, that provide us rich opportunities to integrate those into the general studies curriculum and make real meaning of the content that they're learning. And so that when we have, when we're studying a unit on immigration, which many schools learn about immigration, we're able to connect with residents and employees across the street, and students are able to interview them and learn from them and write a report on someone that they have a relationship with and are able to have an ongoing relationship with. The other piece I would say is just the individual care that your family gets, both at the higher level from the communication that comes out from the school, but also from the teachers themselves. I have, as I said, I have a sixth grader here. I also have a third grader who would not be a good fit for Rashi because of the special needs that he has, who's in the public schools. And I can tell you that the level of communication that you get from the public school relative to what we provide it's not comparable. And so that you really have a good sense of where your child is, what your child is learning, where their strengths are, where their areas of growth are. And I think that's all really essential information to have as a parent.
Thank you, Dave. Sharon, can I ask you to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. The other thing that this may be obvious coming from me, but you're not going to get a Jewish values curriculum in a public school or even a secular independent school. At the Rashi School, there are 5 Hebrew words on the walls of every classroom, in every stairwell, those etched in stone in our entryway. Those are our 5 core values: learning, community, justice, Spirit of God, and wait, I have to go through them in Hebrew: Ruach, Kavod, Kehillah, Tzedek, and Limud. Which one did I forget?
Kavod.
Kavod. Thank you, Adam. Respect. It's 8:20 at night. And you really, you don't get that in a public school. They're not allowed to say those things, to say Jewish values, to teach about religion in a public school. And I have to say that as marvelous as Rashi is as a Jewish school, we are also very aware of other religions that are out there, including of the fact that some of our families are interfaith families. And we really celebrate the ecumenical at Rashi. Of course, we celebrate Judaism, but we celebrate the fact that if a student has a parent who celebrates Christmas, that's okay. It's more than okay. It's that person's religion and it's sacred to them. And I'll tell you that one of the favorite things, I came from the middle school. I've been in middle school for 11 years, and this is my first year as the rabbi for everybody in the school. Middle schoolers' favorite thing is to have a day where they learn about Islam or Christianity or some other faith. And again, we can do that as a comparative religion through faith and experience rather than simply as a course in our social studies. So that's, I think, a really beautiful part of being at the Rashi School.
Thank you, Sharon. We have quite a few questions coming in, so we'll try to answer as many as we can. Adam, I think I will ask you this one. With the availability of vaccines in the near future, what is your expectation of growth of class size next fall?
Well, thank you, Alyssa, because one of the things that I'd look for more opportunities to do is to talk about COVID-19 and health these days, because that doesn't hardly come up at all. We actually have a tremendous group of medical professionals who provide an advisory panel for us. And together with the heads of other Jewish schools, we built this group, and they consist of epidemiologists and infectious disease specialists, pulmonary people, pediatric people, a whole variety of people from the hospitals of Greater Boston. And we were just talking about this last night when I facilitated our conversation. Vaccines are something that, of course, we're all looking forward to very much. And there's a lot that's not known yet. They're not expecting children to be vaccinated till possibly in time for next fall, very closely. So not for a long time yet. Though as educators in schools, we should end up being in like the second phase of the vaccination. So we'll have adults vaccinated well before we have students. At the same time, what people in the hospitals are hearing, what the message they're getting is even once you're vaccinated, we know that's going to prevent you from getting the disease in most every circumstance. There's not enough data to say what it does about possibly carrying the disease or spreading. So while you'll be getting some self-protection, we're still going to be employing many of the safeguards that are in place right now. And so this kind of speaks to the last person's question as well, because as an independent school, we could very quickly pivot. We could make the changes that we needed to make. We could upgrade our HVAC and have it be the kind of cleaning, filtering system that it needed to be. And when we had to move outside, we had the great good fortune to share with Newbridge on the Charles, who you heard about, a 162-acre campus of woods and fields and the Charles River shore. So we could take our science outside and make that meaningful. We could take our minyan and tefillah outside and have those be meaningful. Mr. Linder, who you heard from, taught music outside virtually all the time so far this fall. So we were able to innovate quickly and act on educational opportunities in a way that would be very difficult, not to mention the fact that we've just completed 13 weeks of in-person school for kindergarten through 8th grade, which is not something that we're seeing in public schools able to do at this point.
Thank you, Adam. Helene, I'm going to ask you the next question. We currently have our kids in a local elementary school, and there is a real community of local friends and neighbors who participate in the school community. How does the Rashi parent community connect over distance and in person in non-COVID times?
Great, thanks. First of all, I just want to say hi to all the teachers too. This was very nostalgic for me as I heard the curriculum over the years, because I have a 7th grader, and it was just bringing back such wonderful memories of flashbacks of all of your curriculum. So thank you so much for helping to develop Ben over the years. And welcome to all the parents out there. It doesn't feel that long ago that I was at a Rashi open house. And now I'm in my 7th grade year at the school, and my son is still thriving there. So in terms of events, so I'm familiar with that too, because I co-chaired the parent committee for the past 2 years, and I've been involved as a parent since my son was in kindergarten. I'll start, I guess, remote community building first during these crazy COVID times, but it hasn't prevented our parent community from still planning events and programs to connect everyone. There's about anyone can get involved in helping to plan it, but there's about 30 parents who are actively involved in planning programs for the faculty and appreciation efforts for the faculty, and then programs for parents and programs for families. And those look like anywhere from drive-in movie night to we have upcoming a magician night on one of the nights of Hanukkah. We have parent game nights and trivia nights that we've done virtually. Also, there are room parents in each grade, so they plan different virtual social programs for all of the parents to connect that way. We do Shabbat programs on Friday for families to connect virtually. We've invited grandparents and special friends to join. We've had, my son actually led a virtual bingo during one of the sessions. We've had virtual karate for the kids and challah baking and different activities over breaks as well. So community building is definitely a core, not just for the parent council, but for the entire Rashi community. And that definitely has not fallen by the wayside at all. In non-COVID times, there's plenty of opportunities for parents to be in the school during all the Jewish holiday celebrations. We would help plan, whether it's Tu B'Shvat or Rosh Hashanah or a Passover Seder. We help get the supplies. We work with the teachers. Like I said, we had a trivia night at the school actually, and we've done meetups at restaurants, and there's always tons of programs that we have going on. The other piece that's really nice that I value a lot as part of the parent community is we have a Simchas and Sadness team that also is there in support of all the Rashi families during times of joy. You know, a child is celebrating a bar mitzvah, or in times of sadness when a family's suffering a loss. We've coordinated meals, we've reached out with cards and flowers and things like that, and a phone call, and we're a very supportive, caring community. And it really, for me, especially after 8 years, it feels like my Rashi community is my family community here. I don't have any local family, and I really relied on them for support in that way too. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Helene. I neglected to mention that you are on our board of trustees. So I'm sorry for that oversight, but again, I think that speaks to your commitment to the school. Dave, I'm going to address the next question to you. Can you speak about diversity at Rashi, not only the actual diversity within the school community itself, but also how do you bring in learning about diversity and equity? I'm personally thinking about the Understanding Differences program that my children went through when they were at Rashi. So Dave, maybe you can start, and then Stephanie, perhaps you can add to Dave's answer.
So yeah, we use a program here called Understanding Our Differences, where we have an outside presenter that we have a relationship with, who comes in at the 3rd grade, the 4th grade, and the 5th grade, and does a series of 7 units over those 3 years. You know, beginning with a unit on blindness and a unit on deafness, and then also moving into 4th grade with physical disabilities and learning disabilities. There's a unit on autism. So each of the units has a sort of some teaching about the difference and hands-on activities for students to be able to sort of experience what that may feel like. And then also coming in with the speaker to talk about, you know, what their experiences are like. And sometimes it's children who come in and speak to the other children, sometimes it's adults, but it's a really powerful program that the students really look forward to each year. And it's been really nice to have a relationship with someone from the outside. So it's another voice coming in and doing the teaching, as opposed to the teachers that they're with every day. I think it gives highlights a sense of specialness to it.
Thank you, Dave. Stephanie, do you want to build on that a little bit when talking about what equity means?
Sure. Recently, with our new social justice assistant, Sherman Goldblum, who's working with me, we worked with grades 2nd through 5th grade and created this really powerful lesson, introductory lesson about what's the difference between equality and equity. And students looked at 2 posters that at first glance seem to be the same poster. It's of children looking through a fence at a baseball game. And we had students observe what they saw in the picture, what they thought was going on. And then we revealed that in fact, those 2 posters were really quite different. One revealed or represented what equality was, that everyone gets the same thing, versus the other poster reflected what equity is, that everyone gets what they need. And that was a really interesting introduction for students about fairness, because sometimes what's fair is that not everybody gets the same thing. And lots of experiences that kids had, they shared with us about whether they thought it was a situation related to equity or equality. And one thing that we're working really hard on in all the grades is that every child should be able to see themselves reflected in the teaching we're doing, in the stories that we're sharing, you know, and in doing so, then students get introduced to a wide range of cultures, of races, of different traditions. We might not have, you know, that kind of diversity in our school, but by bringing that into our teaching and exposing and introducing and creating a sense of appreciation and a sense of, wow, this is what our world is, then we feel really like we're helping our children become a more, I don't know, a more open and understanding and community that's respectful of all people.
Thank you, Stephanie. I would also add, just in terms of the diversity of our community, that we work really hard to make sure that the Rashi School community reflects the diversity of the greater Boston Jewish community. And we have work to do, just like every organization does. But as Rabbi Clevenger noted, we have about 20% of our families who are interfaith, including myself, and my children were at Rashi for several years. We have families who are multicultural. We have 2 mom, 2 dad families. We have Jews of color in our community, single parents by choice. And that is a really important part of who we are. So we make really great strides in doing so. And we are going to continue to focus on that. Our next question is related to differentiated instruction. What type of grouping do you offer and where does that start? And I would combine that if possible. And I don't know, Dave, if you want to start to address this, or perhaps Melissa, when we have multiple students coming in with a real variety of learning environments this year, whether hybrid or entirely online, in person, and a real variability in terms of the skills that are being developed this year. How do we address that with children who are coming into, you know, grades 1 through 5? How do we provide that differentiation in learning?
So I'll take the first part of the question and then Melissa can take the second part. So in terms of differentiation happens at the grade level and beginning, you know, as early as 1st grade even. And that when, and as I mentioned earlier, we're constantly assessing our students' mathematical and literacy skills and having them work with like learners. And we can be, because of the way that we know our students and our ability to pivot and be flexible, we can switch those groupings on a regular basis. We don't start actually having students take different courses per se until middle school. So that beginning in 6th grade, that they will, you know, take different levels of pre-algebra as they move into middle school, but everything's differentiated at the grade level flexibly 1st through 5th grade. And if Melissa, you want to talk about newer students coming in.
Sure. With COVID, you know, hitting our communities and leaving students from different schools experiencing different levels of education over the past spring and through this year, I understand that parents have concerns about what schools are doing with students who are coming from different backgrounds with this. And it's interesting because this year we're seeing that already, because I have 3 new students in my class, and their experience in the spring differed from the experience of Rashi Online in the spring, where we found out in March that we weren't coming back, and we were off and running 2 days later with a full online curriculum. So the parents who are coming into my class knew the families were concerned to say, you know, we experienced a different spring. Are my kids going to be okay? And yes, the answer is absolutely. Teachers can differentiate. And even if we have a homogeneous class where there are no learners that are exactly the same, we are differentiating in everything we do. So we take students, we meet them where they are, no matter what they're coming with and bringing into our classroom, we meet them there and we move them forward on that trajectory. So it doesn't matter what their schooling has looked like through COVID, or even outside of COVID times, if they're coming from a different math program or from a different language arts curriculum. It doesn't matter to us. We get to know them really well very quickly on, and then we go just like that. I also want to say that Rashi has diverse learners. So even if your student is coming in having had hybrid learning this year or whatever it is, the odds are in each given subject area, there are like learners in the cohort. So there are students who, even though they got to where they are at a different route, they're still experiencing learning very similarly to your child, and we're able to use that to our advantage.
Thank you, Melissa. It's 8:37. I'm going to take a couple more questions, and I appreciate everybody's engagement thus far. We have still a pretty significant audience. There are questions about theater opportunities, performance, public speaking skills. Allison, I'd love to ask you, you've got Leah in 3rd grade. Can you talk a little bit about performances, maybe the Wax Museum, and what the opportunities look like for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Allison, Leah in 3rd grade, Jacob in kindergarten. I also have to piggyback Colleen in saying that this is so, I mean, most of these people on the panel know Leah, and even if they hadn't had her, the pleasure of teaching her, know her. That's the beauty of the Rashi School, is that most, you learn everybody, you know everybody in the hallway, and even the middle school teachers know my little boy who's been taking Leah to school for 3 years, and now he's in kindergarten. So that's the true beauty of the Rashi School, and everybody gets to know your kid even before they become theirs. So the Wax Museum is an amazing program in the 2nd grade. Debbie Alper, who's on the panel, who spoke, taught Leah and had the Wax Museum with her. This is an opportunity, it starts in kindergarten, really. Public speaking and confidence is really something that Rashi holds true to their hearts. They really start in kindergarten. They teach the children confidence. There's plays, there's productions. Even if you think your child might not get up there and speak, they are the first to do it, and you are teary and crying in the background. So the Wax Museum is a special thing that most K-1 they hear about and they look forward to. They learn about a historical figure. My daughter came home and told me, like, spinning and so excited about her historical figure that she was going to be playing. They do most of the research in the class, so it kind of becomes, a surprise for the parent to come in and you watch your child stand up there and they are this historical figure, and they learned about it and they developed it, and their passion for it is truly remarkable. We were so proud of Leah and so proud of all the work she did, and she, more than us, she was so proud of that. I just have to say, honestly, it's the excitement level that the teachers instill in the children, and the confidence, I can't say the word enough, confidence that that every teacher at Rashi just, instills in your child. It's amazing. It's truly amazing, starting from kindergarten. And so you see it every year develop, but the Wax Museum was a special one for me in 2nd grade.
Thank you, Allison. Helene, I think you're well positioned to answer this question. How does the lower school prepare students for Rashi's middle school and the increasing rigor and the additional autonomy that the middle school environment provides?
So a lot of it actually piggybacks on what Allison was just saying. I feel like throughout each year at Rashi, there are lots of opportunities to give the kids chances to become independent, to be creative, to present. What comes to mind immediately for me, I think of Stephanie, who spoke about Tom Hui and social justice, and children get to really learn and research projects. And my son nominated an organization and it ended up getting picked by the school, and he had the chance to present in front of the whole school, and opportunities to really research and develop things and present to an entire community. And I think that gives them sort of the skills to be independent, to be confident, which then I think carries over into the middle school. In particular, what I've noticed is, especially when we did Rashi online, and this year in the fall, we're actually one of the few families who's remote learning because we have some underlying health issues in our household. I've noticed my son is an incredible advocate, and I think that's really important in the middle school and high school years. And I think that's something that's been instilled through all the grades at the school, that he has no problem reaching out to teachers to ask for office hours. He's getting an incredible virtual online experience, but there's time where he wants that one-on-one experience with the teacher, and he has no problem reaching out to the teachers, setting up those office hours, identifying if he needs help with something, identifying when he's really excited and challenged, or even when he wants to be put in a group with a certain person. Or I love how he's been able to advocate for himself. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that, as I'm now beginning to think about the high school years, that I want to make sure, whether he's at an independent school or a public school or whatever choice he is, that he's going to be in a position where he feels really strong and confident in what he knows, and then comfortable enough in what he's unsure about to reach out and seek answers from teachers. And academically, the middle school is just beyond. I mean, people say it's the best kept secret in the community. It really is. He's having an incredible academic experience. And even socially, that he's one of the few kids who's remote. The kids have been absolutely incredible to him in making him feel part of the community and engaging with him in every way. So I've been very impressed with the way this school has managed through this. But the curriculum in the middle school is just, I know we're not here to talk about middle school specifically, but the lower school is amazing. And then the middle school is absolutely outstanding as well. And we couldn't be happier. I don't know if I answered the question, but he definitely was very prepared through his lower school years for what he's experiencing now.
Terrific.
May
Thank
I
you,
add
Helene.
a word?
Sure.
May I add? So
Seconds, Sharon. Sorry, I don't want to keep
thanks.
everybody up all night.
Sorry, I know. I'll be very brief. Ben Gelber's a wonderful, unique student, and he is tenacious. He's really confident, and for sure the teachers in the elementary program have built that in him. But for students who aren't quite as tenacious and quite as confident, one of the most wonderful things about Rashi is how the teachers all know the students so well that we have our finger on the pulse of kids, even if they're not asking for us to have our finger on the pulse. And so if we know that a student should be asking us for help, even if they're not asking, we're seeking them out. And so, as Dave said very early, there aren't cracks for them to fall into in the Rashi school. It's really important to know. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. So I'm just going to have Adam give a couple of closing remarks. In the meantime, Helene and Allison, may I ask you to type into the chat or into the Q&A? I think into the chat is probably the best place, your contact information, if that's okay. In case any of our parents are interested in following up with you, we would love to have them contact you with additional questions. And Adam, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Alyssa. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope that you feel some of the passion and the excitement that I do every time I get to hear the educators speak about what they do. Rashi is a special place. I've been in education for 23 years, And every independent school is going to tell you that people know their children well. And it's different at Rashi. The depth of understanding and care, and the fact that all of that knowledge is shared among the teachers and put to work for the students is something that I haven't seen. And so that's something that's tremendously exciting to me. But I want to come back to something that Dave said at the start, which really stuck with me, which was that at Rashi, it's an amazing set of steps through the first grade, through the second grade, through the third grade, that's building the whole time. That's building, helping students to develop their identities in leadership, their identities as Jews, their identities as learners, and taking responsibility for their learning, for how they behave, for what it is that they really, truly want to be focusing on. And all of these things prepare them very well, not just for our middle school, but for being successful in the schools that they go to. And they go to all of the top independent schools in the area. Some of them go on to the public high schools and do very well there as well, or on to Gann Academy to continue in a Jewish environment, and on to the best universities in the world and grad schools for that terminal degree. It's just a tremendously, to me anyway, impressive group of people. And during all of this strange time we've been going through with COVID, we hear again and again from our alumni. And we're a K-8 school. That's not something that alumni are usually that connected to. We hear again and again from our alumni about the things that they're doing in the community, the ways that they're finding to support the community, to give back even during this time, and how that all started for them at Rashi. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Alyssa would be happy, I'm sure, to talk to any of you further, as would I, or really any of us. And we hope that we'll be able to share with you the wonder that is a Rashi 1st to 5th grade education.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us in the admissions office if you have any follow-up questions about tonight or any questions about the admissions process itself. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend. Thank you all.